This is the call to order the Athletic Medical Staff Committee meeting. Ms. Tina, can you call the roll?
Dr. McMorris.
Here.
Mr. Sharp.
Here.
Mr. Seals.
Here.
Mr. Cecil Harris.
Mr. Chapin, do we have any public comment? All right, so item number one on our agenda is discussion action on the contract and title of elementary designee positions. Human Resources Supervisor, Mr. Kelly Jones.
Good afternoon, members of the board. This proposal is in an effort to align all of our school-level administrative positions. The position of principal designee that we have right now, only at the elementary level, would be replaced with the title of assistant principal. This is also necessary in order to meet legal contractual requirements of the position. And the outcome of this would be that we would have these positions placed on a performance-based contract up to 3 years in length rather than being year-to-year appointments. And the page that I provided to you guys, it also outlines what type of changes would have to be made to make that happen as far as striking out positions. And the net gain from this is 0 positions. We're eliminating 25 positions, replacing it with 25 assistant principal positions. Any questions?
I know this is something they've been wanting for a while, so just to reiterate, I want to make this point. It's a net 0. We're getting rid of 25 positions, or have 25 positions, and they will have to be interviewed as well, correct? So
That is correct, yes, sir. With it being new positions, we will have to advertise, and then principals interview and make the appointments.
excellent. Any discussion?
And I think, one, I appreciate the reach out to answer the rookies' questions in terms of this being new to me. But I like the performance-based contract concept for them to be in. I think it worked really well. That's a good thing.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions, comments on this? Do we have a motion to accept the proposal? Mr. Cecil Harris makes a motion, Mr. Bradley Sharp seconds. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? None, so the motion carries. Item number 2, discussion action on comprehensive.
3. It's number 3.
I'm sorry, I didn't know number 1 tapping the gavel counted. Number 3, discussion and action on comprehensive literacy state development CLSD grant proposal. Ms. Tracy.
Good afternoon, Dr. McMorris, Mr. Purvis, members of the board. One of the key recommendations from the Lean Frog analysis was that we would pursue grant funding more proactively as a district. And we're excited to announce that we received a grant, the Comprehensive State Literacy Development Grant through the state, that not only meets the challenge that was given to us from Lean Frog, but more importantly enables us to provide enhanced support to our schools. The goal of the grant is to improve literacy outcomes, and we would do that by building teacher capacity and capacity within our schools, providing targeted resources to the schools that are serving our highest need children, ensuring that we have highly effective teachers in our classrooms by providing literacy mentors to support our schools, and implementing high-quality, evidence-based practices, interventions, and opportunities to support our children and their families. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Jones to share the foundational work that we actually began prior to receiving the grant. This work was focused on braiding funds and establishing structures to develop a program that effectively integrates the grant with what we're calling our Intervention Institute, all in support of successful outcomes for our students. Ms. Jones?
Good afternoon. One thing that we have done this year is to really be in our schools, taking our experts from the central office and being there so we can support our schools, whether it's at the teacher level, the administrative level, and making sure that everything is run correctly, and also making sure that everything is is done with a student growth mindset. Improving those students' foundational skills was very, very key to what we were trying to do to make sure that every student is very literate when they leave kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And so being in the schools, we noticed a need for intervention. And not only, some of our schools are doing an amazing job with intervention, but some of them needed to be redone. And in doing so, all of our professional development, what we would like to do is make sure it's very engaging when they come to us, so that when they leave, they have a model, they know how to do it when they go back to their school and recreate it. Because we find that a lot of things aren't being implemented because some people don't know how to do it, they're scared of it, and so we want to eliminate that by having an engaging professional development. And so, along with Ms. Jo K. Tullis, we have developed a Reading Summer Institute with our EEF funds that we have been provided. And we will launch that to build teacher expertise in the science of reading with a focus on diagnosing reading deficits, implementing explicit systematic interventions, and increasing school-wide literacy capacity. So this will be very, very instrumental in making sure that no student is left behind in their reading literacy. Our goals of the Institute are to deepen our teacher knowledge of how students learn how to read, with emphasis on phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. We will train our educators to identify specific reading deficits and apply research-based intervention strategies. Empower teachers to deliver explicit, systematic reading interventions to struggling students during summer school. And then also, this is key, is cultivate that campus-based literacy leaders who can redeliver professional development and analyze their existing school reading programs for gaps and growth areas. We will really want to build that leader capacity on campus, so it's being done whether we're there or not. They know who to reach out to. We can come there to support them, to see if they have questions, but having those leaders on every campus who truly understands how to run a reading intervention program. It's a job-embedded learning model. They will engage in job-embedded learning by providing targeted interventions to summer school students. So she will do training for them in the afternoon, and the next day they're going to have to go and implement it with our summer school students. So it's a two-way street. The students are going to get extremely good intervention tools to be able to learn how to read, and our teachers are going to actually be trained in how to do it. They're going to receive coaching and feedback during the implementation. And we're going to reflect on instructional impact and adjust our practices in real time. We believe it's going to have a sustainable impact on our schools. Teachers will return to their campus as reading intervention experts, capable of supporting their peers through PD, leading collaborative analysis of campus reading practices, and helping design more effective, responsive reading instruction for all students. So we were excited that we had this in place. We're ready to go. She has been very hard working on making sure that everything is run correctly, and we're ready to go for summer school. And it tied in very well when we had the opportunity to apply for the CLSD grant, is making sure our interventions are done correctly so that we can make sure that our students are learning and we're not leaving any student behind. Any questions?
I've got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I may have asked these, but how much is the grant?
I'm gonna go over that with you one second. Yeah, I'm gonna go back over that with you. I'm gonna continue on.
Any questions on the
Well,
Reading
yeah, and
Institute?
I guess the next question is, once we start this, if we open the can of worms, we can't go back. So we just need to make sure that we're able to fund this down the road somewhere.
I think she's gonna talk a little, and then at the end, I'll talk about that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Back to the grant, the state had 96 applications for the grant, and they awarded 26 applicants, fully or partially. And we were fortunate enough to be fully funded. It's actually a 4-year project, but in year 1, our funding amount was $895,000. In order to qualify for the grant, we had to qualify via one of a number of different scenarios that they listed. For Livingston Parish, that scenario dealt with our growing population of English language learners. That's been one of our fastest growing populations. And to qualify for the grant, any school that has at least 10% English language learners or that's growing by at least 10% could qualify. We had 12 schools that would qualify in cohort 1. These schools either have at least 10%, or they're growing at a very rapid rate. And then in cohort 2, which would begin in 26, 27, we have 10 additional schools that qualify who are growing at 10%, but not quite as rapidly as the schools in cohort 1. In the grant, each recipient is required to implement 2 leading and learning literacy innovations. First and foremost is supporting our newest teachers in their first, say, 3 years or so. And then second, to increase instructional support for the identified subpopulations, in this case, English learners. The focus is to utilize literacy mentors, that's what the grant would pay for, is to employ literacy mentors to support the needs of these identified subpopulations and these newest teachers. The grant requires that funds are prioritized to be spent to impact student literacy outcomes. And the funding from this grant would allow us to employ a grant director, which would be a curriculum coordinator, and 8 teachers who serve as literacy mentors for year 1. And then, since the grant is set up as a 4-year project, and with the funding renewed yearly, pending completion of grant requirements, the grant requires adding 4 additional literacy mentors in year 2. The grant award is as follows. Year 1 is $895,000. Year 2, you have both cohort 1 and cohort 2 running at the same time, and it's $1,070,000. Year 3 is also $1,070,000. And then year 4, cohort 1 rolls off, but cohort 2 continues in their 3rd year, and it's $595,000 that year. The total grant award is $3.6 million. The grant funds will also support professional learning for our CLSD team members and participating schools. We do believe that this will provide the opportunity to give very intentional support, along with our Summer Institute, to our schools, and we're very thrilled to share this exciting news with you all. We are proud to be awarded the significant grant to provide additional support to our schools with a 0 net cost to the general fund. We know that in 4 years, the grant will roll away, will be done, but it is our, what we hope to do, what we plan to do is to try to build capacity and to put structures in place that allow us to continue this work well beyond the 4 years. Once we get solid structures in place, a culture, an expectation, we should be able to continue the work without any problem. And at this point, we're seeking approval from this committee and the full board to hire the positions funded by this grant.
When you say create a structure for it, that means we would start having to come up with $5 million every 4 years to fund it.
No, sir, no. I guess practices might be the better word than structure. So we want our schools to have solid practices around working with their English language students. And we would also be working at the same time to improve the beginning teachers, like their effectiveness, and, get them on very solid foundation. But it's more about the practices of how we do what we do with our students and these interventions, both with our regular kids and the kids that are of greater need. Either that's students with disabilities, English language learners, any student that might struggle a little bit.
So we need to go ahead and plan now to have this budgeted for 4 years.
Now, I'll let Mr. Purvis talk to that, but it's really not the intention to continue with all of these people after 4 years.
Yeah. So, basically, let me back up. First of all, I am always hesitant on grants when you're hiring employees because of the reoccurring funds. The reason that we applied for this grant, because it is a block grant, so it is a 4-year, so you do have some time to get the program off the ground and running and get individuals at the schools accustomed to doing this, so that you're just building that capacity so that when the grant is done, you've got that capacity built, and so the schools can sustain it without that mentor there, because the 4 years while that mentor is there, they're working with all the individuals at that school, building that capacity. And when these individuals are hired, they are being hired, if this is approved, they're gonna be hired with, contingent upon the grant funding, because we understand that, I mean, if we were asking for this to be continued, the amount of burden it would be up on the system, and that's not what we're doing here tonight. We're asking for approval of the grant, and then when those funds run out, those individuals will have a job as a teacher in the system, but not here in one of these positions, because these will not be continued positions. Yes, you go ahead.
Is there an option to renew the grant, or could it be renewed at the end of 4 years?
There have been a couple of different iterations of the CLSD grant, and it's changed, the focus of the grant has changed. The previous iteration, we had one person hired with our pre-K program, and that was directed, or the focus was working actually with students. Now, this is a new iteration of the CLSD grant, and the focus is not working with students, it's building capacity in the teachers. So, I think there's possibility that the CLSD grant may continue in the future, but I don't know what their requirements would be at that time.
Can't count on
No, sir.
No, we couldn't go. And look, but what I will say is, I think with us having it over a 4-year period, I think we will be able to, we'll be able to make such an impact, especially with our new teachers and working with the individuals there, that I think it's a huge benefit for our system. And while we're doing this, and it kind of goes back to what Ms. Jones talked about as well, one of the things we're trying to do is, we're not trying to look at just a single funding source. We're trying to braid some funding sources. So when they talked about summer school and the summer academy, the reading program that we're doing, we're braiding several different funds together, some of our federal funds and some of our grant funds, where instead of summer school costing the general fund a fortune, we're trying to be creative, make sure we're within guidelines, but use those funds from those different sources. And we're gonna continue to try to do things like that to save the general fund money, but also continue to strengthen the impact we're having on kids.
Over a 4-year period, it's basically being interwoven into your day-to-day process down the road.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And I guess to add, this grant works so closely, we'll be working so closely with our English language learners. And we currently have people employed who work in that segment in our district as English language. So they will be very integrated into the work that we're doing here as well. So, I think in 4 years, while we won't need all the people employed by the grant, the one thing that I think you always need is monitoring and follow-up to make sure things are being done. But there are people employed in the EL world that could take up some of those responsibilities when we get, to that point, or throughout the grant and at that point.
One other question, just the incremental cost of this, the literacy mentor program is primarily the staffing cost associated with the new positions that they're gonna function for the 4 years, and it's funded entirely by the grant.
All of it's funded by the grant.
And there's no other appreciable incremental cost of running the program other than that.
No, sir. I mean, we had to do a budget, and most of it, because the focus of the grant is working with your newest teachers via literacy mentors, it's mostly salaries. I mean, almost exclusively salaries. There's a little bit of money for some professional development and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But the funding is based upon the number of schools that qualify and the formula that they have. So the amounts are different first year because it's only cohort 1.
Right.
Year 2, it's cohort 1 and 2. Year 3, it's cohort 1 and 2, so it's more money because you got all of them running.
Right.
And then year 4, it's just cohort 2. So it's 3 years for each cohort, but it cycles in and out. But that's how the funding amount is determined, and we were fortunate to be fully funded throughout the grant.
Yeah.
But the number of mentors, we would start with 8, we would add 4 after year 1. And then those 4 would be the only 4 that continued in year 4.
And I just want to reiterate that with everything that we're doing, we're building that leader capacity on the campus
And this is also gonna have a major impact, in my opinion, on teacher retention, because new teachers and retaining new teachers, a large amount of that is basically from depends on the amount of support you give them. This is going to allow us to give them more support. So I think this could have major impact. I don't know for us that we've ever had this number of individuals that's been added for support at no charge to our district. So we're excited, but now look, I want to make sure that everyone understands, this did not come with just a little easy task. Those ladies worked days and weeks, I mean, literally, and no telling the number of hours, because the application was huge. Because you had to have data analysis, detailed data analysis on everything that was submitted. So this was not an easy task, and the ongoing monitoring will not be easy either, because there's a huge maintenance of effort, time and effort, all of that has to be monitored throughout the grant. So it's a large amount of work, but the payoff is gonna be really good.
Well, I think it's really gonna be beneficial, because what's happening, and what I've observed, is that the regular classroom teachers have been stifled, I guess, because they've been having to slow down to help the ESL kids. Whereas now we can learn how to instruct those kids along with our regular ed kids, so that our regular ed kids are not held back. And so this, I think, will be a viable problem.
Absolutely.
And thank y'all for the work.
Thank
it
you.
took to get this.
Any other questions?
Thank y'all. Any additional comments? No more comments. Anyone make a motion to pass this? Mr. Sharp makes a motion to pass. Mr. Seals seconds the motion. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, discussion and action on amending the ELL coordinator job description. Human Resources Supervisor, Mr. Brian Wax.
Dr. McMorris, members of the committee, Mr. Purvis, I'm requesting amendments to job description 17.8. That is the ELL/ESL coordinator. And some of these changes are minor, and it is just changing some wording from ELL to EL, or English learner, just to kind of get with a more current terminology that the state is using now. Some of the job duties were changed, not changed, but the wording was changed a little bit just to reflect a little bit more of what, how we're asking our administrators to work. For example, just rather than using professional development, using PLCs, ILTs, and some of that kind of vocabulary. The biggest change comes under the qualifications, number 3. Right now, number 3 states that you have to have a minimum of 3 years' experience teaching ESL to be able to apply for this job. And what we'd like to do is add an or to that, have minimum 3 years' experience teaching ESL or a certification in administration or educational leadership. That's probably the big change. I would like to say this is not creating a new position. This is not adding any kind of salary. It's the same position, but rather mainly changing some of the vocabulary from ELL to EL. And the biggest thing there is adding the or certification in administration or educational leadership in order to be able to apply for this position.
Should there be some kind of language in there that says that experience will trump administrative work, or does that matter?
We don't have anything that has experience trumping it. The way it's stated right now would be have a minimum of 3 years' experience teaching ESL or certification in administration or educational leadership. I hope that would come out in the interview, during the interview process, that would be taken into consideration, the experience with the
Should we add it to the language
ESL.
that you hope that should be taken, that should take that into consideration anyway?
So,
That way somebody with experience isn't looked over for somebody who has admin, wouldn't that?
so this position, I mean, it's called a coordinator, but let me just clarify what this position is. When it was created, it was created with this title, but this is actually a program. So just like we have a principal at a school that's leading a school, this particular position is the director of our ELEC program. So they're not working just directly with kids. They're running the entire program, so they have a staff that works under them as well. So it's not that they're working just directly with kids.
So somebody with more experience, it doesn't matter. The better fit may be somebody with more administrative experience.
Possibly,
Because
yeah.
they need to run a business.
Correct.
Okay.
But don't, and I asked this question, the administrator, are they gonna have some ESL training? Because, you know, even though they have the administrative piece of it, they may not have any ESL training. So are they gonna give an opportunity to have some ESL training too?
Again, that's,
Training the teacher
yeah.
to be an administrator, or are you gonna train the administrator to be a ESL person?
I
That's
think,
kind of what I was getting at with
right.
the questioning.
I think that would come through the interview process.
If I could interject with the grant, they would be intricately involved with what we're doing, and there will be training for the mentors within the grant, anyone involved with the grant, and anyone really touching EL kids would have opportunities for continued growth.
And there's also professional development that the state gives us on EL training that they would also be able to.
This position will be heavily involved with the individuals in the grant because this is the direct population. And so that, there's gonna be extensive hands-on training.
This population is exploding, I know that, I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to, do we have a motion? Mr. Seals makes a motion. Mr. Harris seconds the motion. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? None, so the motion carries. Want to make a motion to adjourn? That's it. We got 7 motions to adjourn. Mr. Seals? Mr. Harris seconds. No opposition? Carries. Also want the record to show